Audio is now live. So, just wanted to welcome everyone initially to the Bartlett Society Roundtable flat table discussion of like kind of the initial. So we're just going to kind of chat through what we've been doing this year, our kind of like how the year's been with coronavirus and the pandemic, and then also with what we've done this year and how it can be developed, or how it can kind of be kind of brought into the fabric of the Bartletts, because obviously there's like a lot, as well as the Bartlett being a very very relevant and prestigious institution. There is a lot of improvement that can also be made, and initiatives and kind of contributions that students like you guys have made sort of done this year. So we'll start with you guys over here.
Yeah, sounds good.
That's not what we did this year.
Yeah.
You just screamed.
It's good. It adds to the ambience.
I think it's good too.
Yeah.
I think you want to turn on.
Okay, nice. I think that should work.
Yeah.
I'd reckon we'll get some comments in the chat if it stays like that.
Provided a platform for students to tell stories of Asia that is untold, undeclared, and unsuspected, and we did it through the format of a magazine with different student experience, and there were tales of students' ancestors traveling and current experiences, and etc.
Yeah, so our magazine is currently a digital magazine, and you can find it in the link in the bio.
Yeah, so we'll be posting a link in kind of later on in the stream.
Great. So we'll post a link later into YouTube, and basically it's an accessible issue right now, and we're looking to print physical copies of it next year, hopefully, if budget allows. And so we collected stories from people who are Asian or not, and we basically wanted this magazine to challenge and redefine what being Asian meant and what Asia is. And so we're looking forward to that progressing towards next year. It might not take the form of a lecture series, so looking towards the future, we will have some guests invited by the Asian magazine, and then it will be our older writers from the WI think tank, and you find them in the magazine, and they are collaborative working in China and working with some galleries.
Yeah, I think they've moved back to New York. They're I think a couple, architect couple, one from Argentina, one from Belgium, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So if you have a look at our magazine, they were talking to their Chinese artist friend, all of the programs who participated, and then we have essays from first years and from fifth years, and next year we're looking to expand to the alumni.
Yeah.
Because you so the first issue that you released so far has been, it was kind of formatted in the sense of being a meal that you through, and it's got kind of different courses. So if you can talk about the kind of the logic behind why you chose to
the menu design.
So we chose a very well-known menu from the Italian cuisine, the antipasti, all the way to the
rigorous course structure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And on one level, we wanted to structure the articles in a similar way to how meals are structured, from light starters to a heavier main course, and then palate cleansers in the middle. And at the same time, we want to challenge this idea of cultural ownership, that certain elements or certain ideas can only be expressed by a group of people who had certain ancestry, and that is the same idea that we want to expand the culture and feel that they can contribute no matter what their background is.
It's like when you think of fine dining, structured fine dining steps, where it's less known and less used. So we chose the Italian format to go with the menu, and then so people can view and read an Asian magazine from this Western standpoint and perspective, because this magazine is published under Bartlett, and that is in the United Kingdom.
Yeah. So we'll go down to the other end of the table with you guys who also had an initiative. You did a small Olympics event.
Like an in-person event.
Yeah, an in-person event, which is kind of other end of the spectrum. So could you just sort of speak on, the planning of that, and then what kind of transpired on the day,
Yeah, so we heard from a lot of our course members, because we have a group chat, that a lot of people were kind of craving for some sort of meetup, some sort of in-person interaction, and we tried to reach out to our department leaders, but we didn't really get anything, so we just decided to have a student-run mini Olympics sports day. Just because we wanted to have that kind of community and unity in our course. And I feel like that is a very important thing to have, especially in like pandemic times, where everyone's just alone in their room, and
this gave everyone in the course like a good sense of normality compared to what happened throughout the whole year. Because throughout the whole year, you meet people, even though it's virtually, it's not the same feeling as meeting someone in real life. So the Olympics really gave everyone that sense of community, like getting to see each other and doing something relatable to the course as well. So it really good introduction to the community.
about kind of the idea of a sports day and like kind of the Olympics.
Yeah, and what activities actually took place as well.
so we wanted to do the sports day because the Olympics was supposed to happen in 2020, and it was happening this year. So we thought it might be quite comical and good to have an event based on that. But having a sports day, you kind of instilled that sense of like teamwork. So beforehand, we had a whole group chat to kind of organize the people who were attending. We put them into their own separate groups. We arranged it by colors, so they had people to work with throughout the day.
Yeah, we had a range of sports. We told everyone to bring cardboard boxes so that we stack them up, so that we hold each other. And it was pretty fun because on that day the wind was not so I think the highest I don't quite remember, it's probably like 80 degrees centigrade.
Something like
Yeah.
that.
So, other course we had some drawing inspired activities as well. We drew landmarks, London landmarks, which we tried our best to pick the hardest, but it shows like how deeply integrated London's architecture is into everyone's mind. So
So in all of the events, we try to incorporate at least like one or two multiple things. So for like the cardboard boxes, we incorporated oil structures models, and all of the building physics that comes behind it. And with basically the Pictionary event, we kind of incorporated the whole design aspect of architecture and all of our live drawing sessions. So it had like a holistic kind of feel to it.
Yeah, so it always kind of from the event, it always ties back into something that was then brought through the course, which is modules that do quite unique way. So we'll then move down to Pete. So you were nominated for essentially helping lots of people throughout the year, and that's like a bit harder to speak on, obviously. Than
that's true. So I suppose a lot of people here who had amazing initiatives about different ideas, exploring from the Bartlett, but I suppose for myself is that the studio is such an important part of your studies, and actually for the past year and a half, not having had studio culture has really made a big difference. I suppose I kind of maybe helped friends who maybe didn't know how to use certain computers. These are all things that happen like second nature. Like everyone helps each other out. And I think that's part of what makes the Bartlett really great, is that when we are in a physical studio, you have your friends around that they've missed over the past year and a half. So I suppose that's something that I've tried to kind of address. I've definitely found that quite a helpful thing for myself as well, that maybe we haven't had over the past year and a half.
Yeah, it's interesting to see right now. It's happening upstairs, and you've got people, just because of proximity, they're speaking and they're enough and help someone. You can help them through messaging them or something. But it's also so much more kind of strenuous to actively, kind of proactively go out there and help people with their projects. Do you think that possibly coming back into the studio, which we hopefully will be doing kind of in the next year, do you think that there's anything that can be taken from?
Definitely. So I think there's also been some really great initiatives set up in the Bartlett this year. For example, the Lunch Club was an initiative set up by some students in the Bartlett, and they kind of went out of their way in their initiative, and they had different students from different courses, different years, who maybe had similar projects, and they came together and met. I joined into it as well, and I got a lot from it myself. Set up by some of the students would carry on as we come back into the Bartlett, where students across different courses might get together and share ideas, and it's also a really good way of getting to know people. I think it'd be great if these kind of initiatives, including the led initiatives, are fantastic as a way of bringing people together.
Because I guess there isn't this kind of need for sort of conveying is this something that's actually wanted, because it's produced from a need for people. Yeah, for people wanting to do it.
Definitely, and I think the tone of these kind of meetings are often better. People may be a little bit more relaxed, might be more, so we'll learn from our lessons and things that worked well from.
Kind of speaking of going forward and kind of developing things, the BA magazine, do you think that, what's your kind of goal in terms of the development of the magazine, and where do you kind of envision it going?
And the format and your future endeavors of this.
And it goes into website, interactive film, whatever it is, wherever it takes us. Because we don't want to be restricted by the publication, the text, all of that. And we want to see who joins us with new talent.
Issue in its own right, with its own merit, reconsidering everything. Yeah.
So we don't want to be bogged down by one idea that is a magazine. It has to have a many structural
desire to have this kind of thing that sort of, I guess there's the comfort of something that maybe works and that people kind of pay attention to, and then the content. So do you guys want to move away from that and see how many times you can sort of regenerate it?
Yeah, absolutely. Every issue should be a new thing on its own. Yeah, because we don't want
the Olympics
really? I didn't know.
now that the Olympics has sort of stopped, it won't be going on until after the end of the equal time. Do you think it has room to kind of move more into
maybe the Winter Olympics?
Happen itself for later years and make it bigger, have more funding. It can become interdisciplinary. Something fun like, I don't know, a talent show, some other competition.
Most students, once they finish it, they go straight away home, and they don't really spend that much time with course mates as a whole cohort as well. So, it's different,
I think lots of us want to kind of organise architecture-related events, and I think that a lot of the time, even social, is focused and it's architectural. And what's really interesting is that the mini Olympics or a talent show or something that it's kind of something that people are they kind of keep it on the same kind of thread. And I think that it requires quite a lot of tact to do so. But I also think that completely moving to a different in a different direction, it's just a really clever way of making it about socialisation and about people coming together and chatting, rather than people can always revert back to, and you can always kind of recede back into this.
Like having these social events.
BA should kind of, do you think that BA has a scope for possibly turning into something that is kind of in person and has this kind of this interactive side, very kind of one-on-one. Yeah.
Well, I think physical interaction is certainly a very good idea. Well, for example, what they've done, I think they've kind of filled a hole in the university level where if you think about it, sports is a physical activity, like sports is not necessarily that accessible for everyone. But of course, you can join a club, but that means commitment. It's not a casual thing that you just walk to. So
I mean, we are intending on doing a physical launch event of the initiative because we never had a chance to do that when we have the print edition ready, maybe, and then see where we go from there, because then we'll meet interesting people and see where it takes us. Because the whole initiative and the idea of setting up the magazine is that like stories from Asia is told like on a personal level to people from maybe in the UK, for example. Because a lot of what we see here that's about Asia are news articles or things that other people write about Asia. It's so rare that we actually hear like personal stories from Asia, which is a lot of what our article is actually about. For example, Jackson, who was our photographer over there, wrote an article about his ancestry and how like he moved to the UK, and so like these personal stories are actually in conversation.
And perhaps we can welcome back all the contributors.
A really nice way of sort of tying it and beginning, because I think that a lot of and there's something quite important to say, things over teams, and it has to be something that's significantly more kind of engineered, standard of. There's a
within the school might be really
And power.
that one.
Yeah. That's really nice.
And we have lights. Sorry about that. I think we all sat still for too long. But then, yeah, like, talking about kind of in-person, events and activities, and it's definitely that unless you're very specifically kind of prescribed to a breakout room to speak with people in a very, small group, you can never, like, people chatting in small groups or so much more natural, and it means that you get people taking a lot more away from it, I think.
Yeah.
And
I guess like taking away the ceremonial unmute is a very good thing. Actually, very formal. You have to announce what you're thinking.
Yeah. And everyone has to sit in silence and wait for you. I think it's like a very when you have a conversation, I guess it's something that you've really kind of done this year, where it's been this year of people being in, you help people with the programs and with all of these things. And what do you think is kind of the best, not have an answer, but what do you think is kind of the best way of making people sort of have a closer social interaction?
Naturally, when, for example, you're working in a studio, you work in close proximity with people and spending a lot of time with people, you really get to know them, and you almost kind of create this small kind of like family feel. But then also, I think a really important part of this is kind of like you kind of like connecting as individuals as well. I think an important part of it is also doing social events, not just talking about academia, but also talking about what you're doing outside of university. And often you have really interesting conversations when you're away from university. So taking that detachment from your course and maybe going out for the day with friends, like from uni, or doing social events like at the Olympics. That's when you have the really interesting conversations. And often these kind of conversations can kind of, if you're working on your project, actually taking that break and having these kind of conversations when you're like a step away, that being reflective can also really help. And when it comes back to doing work, for example, you kind of like clear in the mind. And I think a really important part is also, I guess, like taking that separation and doing social events with your friends and with your peers at uni. And I suppose that goes beyond academia. It's like more to do with like social engagement and connection, not just talking about work, but doing things that you enjoy. I think is a really important part of university, and having fun as well. I think it's a really important part.
I think it's kind of a year. That's half of the actual scope of what you can do and what there is available. And I think that society is sort of this sort of thing, and sport and talking to people and just being in proximity with people gives you this, which is sometimes something you can't do, like with this year's thing you can't you, but it does kind of forces you to talk to people, which is something that a lot of people think it's got this. It's a lot more organic, isn't it?
Definitely. I think having a platform like a student society is a really powerful tool. I think if people have ideas of things that they'd like to see change within the school, it's great to kind of voice those within the student community and kind of engage students and get backing for these ideas. And I suppose like the initiatives that we've run over today, it's all about students kind of going out their way, doing something where they might not necessarily know what the outcome will be, but kind of making it happen. And I think that's something really positive in schools, having like individuals like yourselves like coming together, pursuing their own interests with the interest of like helping other people and kind of bringing people together. I think is a really, really important part, and I definitely encourage people within the school, if they have ideas of social events they might like to do or different initiatives, definitely like speak up and try and actively make these things happen, because they are easy to I suppose there can be a lot of work involved, but a lot of people benefit from a lot of these initiatives that people have set up within the student community, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that another thing to note with that is that the society is pretty young as well. So we're, as well as trying to kind of build up, like a kind of roster of what we want to do throughout the year, it's still very kind of able to be, manoeuvred into helping student initiatives and helping push ideas through, and using the kind of collective power of the society to funding to like help kind of bring ideas, concepts of people's what they think should happen with the architecture school, and turn that into a reality for because a lot of the time there is it's threatening to go to sort of have this idea that this entire kind of loads and loads of steps to go through in order to turn that from just in your head to something that's real. And I think that there's so much encouragement to do that in a project setting. So you come up with an idea and then you kind of move that through and you work through it. And there should also be this emphasis on student-led projects off here and back, and just this idea of helping people and it being kind of moved into something that is real and tangible and has impact, and the society is kind of there to help do that. But,
I agree, because the longevity of a project is really hard to achieve when it's, for example, our initiative. Like, we absolutely wanted to keep going and go on for years, but the reality is it requires a lot of support and from the faculty, from the society, and from like our readers, participants, whatever they're called. It requires a lot of support to keep the project running and going, because it requires a lot of time and effort and energy, but at the same time we just have a platform to put it out there. And I think it's really good to collaborate with the Bartlett Society, with the Bartlett faculty, with the International Lecture Series to put our brand out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that also just like the ability of the society to kind of recognise as something that might not be in terms of time-wise that established, but has this kind of sense of establishment as because it's the official society. I think that the ability that has to sort of sometimes sway people and let people see a project that has maybe come up by a student that they've kind of proposed or that they've kind of brought in and used and show it as like as an established demonstrative thing, and be able to present it as that. It kind of gives it a lot more kind of momentum, which means that people are on board a lot quicker. And I think it's quite it's a great way of expediting and removing the element of having to kind of get signatures for something and get it kind of body has this body that can support it.
And I feel like it definitely, for example, it definitely builds up your confidence to take what you've learned into your this kind of belief in yourself more.
Definitely, and I think possibly on that note we could hand over the award itself. So I'll just go and so from the we in this year of kind of each other and feeling like sometimes like crazy.
All your friends and peers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess like, all these different.
Just on a kind of final note, the society wants to just kind of like the committee, so it's myself, Izzy, and Jackie who's kind of behind the camera, and we just want to say that the society. So we want to,
All bars do very much. Absolutely.
And I think these discussions are a really important part of that as well. I think it's a really good idea bringing people together and talking about different initiatives that can be carried on within the school as well. Definitely.
Yeah, and I think it's just a really nice way to kind of cap off the year, which has been pretty tough, I think. But
Forward next year.
Yeah, thank you so much. Enjoy your
no, yeah, cool. So thank you everyone for tuning in. No, it's been a really successful stream.
Turn the
Turn that off.
Am I allowed to take